Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel, and we're going to look at the astrological weather forecast for the week of July 20th to 26th. Main thing we're going to look at is today's new moon at 29 degrees Cancer, which means the moon is conjunct the sun. We're at the beginning of a new lunar month here, so what we see now will play out over the next month. And this new moon and sun conjunction is exactly opposite Saturn, and we're also in a T-square pattern with Eris, which is stationing retrograde. So we've got some tension again for sure under this new moon. Now what's nice is the moon's in Cancer, which is the sign it rules, and even though it's opposite Saturn, Saturn is in Capricorn, which is the sign it rules. So even though this might not be the easiest new moon to work with, these two are willing to work together because they're in a strong condition as long as you meet the requirements that they're asking for first. So it's at the 29th degree, first of all. So the 29th degree is a critical degree. It's the last degree of the sign. And that means we either graduate to a higher evolutionary way of looking at things, or we kind of get, as they would say back in when you went to school, get left back and have to repeat many of the lessons that got us to this point. So we make the wrong choices for ourselves in the new moon, then we'll have a tendency to end up having to repeat a lot of the lessons and learn from them and get a different reaction next time. So 29th degree makes it a pretty critical new moon. Now we've just gone through all those eclipses, and if you'll remember, Cancer was a big part of that energy. And once again, this new moon at the very end of Cancer is kind of like the closure of all that eclipse energy. And a lot of us were experiencing a lot of intense energy surrounding our family, our home, our resources, things like that, mainly due to the situations going on in society right now. So moon in Cancer means that once again, the issues that this is going to bring up are having to do with family, home, heritage, nation, things from the past, things like that. So that's, once again, we're at that 29th degree. So now it's the time to make some serious decisions. With the opposition to Saturn is going to make things really stand out in contrast, where you can really see which relationships, which situations are the ones that are blocking you. And so the opposition really gives that kind of contrast. So that makes it really clear to us that we can see where we want to go, which is our sun and even our moon together, what we want to see next. And Saturn is the contrast of the things that are holding us back. And in this situation, once again, Saturn is the structures we've built into our lives. So those structures, and the ones in particular that are tied into our family and our homes, our nation, are the ones that are kind of restricting us from where we really want to go right now. And there's no doubt that can be like on an emotional level, can feel depressing at times, sad, things like that. Now the thing to remember about Saturn when you're feeling those kind of feelings is they do come and go. Like they're not, you may get into like a negative headspace or emotional space for a while, but you don't overreact to it. You just kind of like sit with it, and it will shift as time goes on. Now the thing that really can help. And I mean, and Saturn can bring up, very validly so, a lot of fears, and that may be the thing that's inhibiting us many times in relation, in this case, to our family and home, resources, things like that. So the thing with Saturn, though, and the moon in this case, like I said, they're both in rulership, so they are willing to work with one another on this stuff. And Saturn basically is just saying, listen, before you get what you want, you have some duties that are required of you, and they may have to do with others. And in this case, the opposition likely do. And it may be hard, and it may even be impossible to reach an agreement. The opposition's basically going to be like, hey, we're seeing the contrast, like I said, in our differences. Now, can we sit down and hammer out an agreement, do the hard work, and do the compromising necessary so that we can move forward from here, understanding that no one's going to get exactly what they want? Or is it a situation where you're literally having to shut that person down and unfortunately look at them as really an adversary to where you're trying to go, and have to try to escape their influence and the way that they're restricting you? So if you meet the duties of at least trying to hammer out the agreement and it still doesn't work out, I think that's enough to appease Saturn and say, hey, you were trying to do what you were supposed to do. You don't have complete control of the situation, obviously, when you're in a relationship with someone else. So you've done what you can, and you can let it go at that point. Now, remember, last week I talked about Eris being in the T-square situation with the Sun opposite the Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto lineup that we have going on in Capricorn. And I said that, for leaders and those who are in power, and, society itself is going to be very stressed out because Eris is just making things really chaotic right now. She's doing her job, is what she's really doing. So she is in the T-square with this new moon right now opposite Saturn. She is square both Saturn and the Sun moon. And not only that, she's stationing retrograde this week. So she's standing still. And when a body or a planet is standing still, that's when their influence is the strongest. So she is the goddess of chaos. And once again, those who are in power, this week's going to be another very difficult week for them, because they're just going to have so many wrenches thrown into their power trip. And and if you have one on a personal level, same thing's going to happen. And if people around you are doing that to you, they're going to end up having a lot of chaos brought into their life. But in this case, I really must say, the reason Eris has gotten so involved in this situation is because of the stagnancy of what's going on, where people, are stuck on issues of pride, stuck on issues of materialism, stuck on issues of self-righteousness. And she's showing that all that stuff is not as stable as we would like to perceive it to be. So very, very interesting there. And so the moon and Sun are exactly opposite Saturn, like I said. And what got us there was, prior to that, we had the opposition to Jupiter and Pluto right before the new moon. So Jupiter, very weak in Capricorn, people up on their soapboxes trying to push their values into a system that needs to change instead, and they're trying to bring it back. So that's the first energy. And then moon opposite Pluto shows us the shadow, the ugly side of that, and where that is no longer working and needs to transform or change, be purged. And now Saturn has come in as the last opposition and is literally saying, this is your duty. This is what you must do in order to change that stuff. So that's the energy we're working with this new moon. Not the easiest energy, but like it could be more difficult too. Meeting those duties and then appeasing Saturn that way will free you somewhat from what's holding you back for going for what you want yourself. So Eris going retrograde is one of the other 3 big events of this week. And, like I said, she's just going to be in this very strong position right now of just creating a lot of chaos in the social world and trying to just shake things up out of this. So there's 2 really positive things going on too that we can work with. One of them, and I mentioned it during the Mercury retrograde cycle, Mercury is sextiling Uranus now for the 3rd time. And if you remember, I said during that cycle, you may have come up with some hint of a really brilliant idea, and it's kind of like inside still. And I said to start looking last week when Mercury turned direct for like opportunities that may come up for that to actually become active in the outer world. So this week we have Mercury sextiling Uranus for the 3rd and final hit of its retrograde cycle. Since it's now going forward again, it's going to hit Uranus for the 3rd time. And this is that week where the opportunity is likely to present itself, or that you feel intuitively like it's the time to push it out. So this is a time of ingenuity where we get like a lot of ingenious insights, perceptions, wisdom, knowledge downloaded very quickly into our consciousness. And in fact, it would be good to like write down or record a lot of the thoughts, because they can come rapidly and you may forget some of them if you don't. But it's really a great time to tackle old problems with a new perspective. It's a great time to connect with other people and share information and get really like fired up about what you're doing. And right now, like when you think about all this inhibition and stuff, like, it's really just changing mindsets a lot of times is where all this stuff has to change. So like, just like having a mindset that's not fixed and stuck, like, and feeling like, I don't want to come out of what always worked for me before. Like, instead having a mindset of like, I want to move forward, I want to grow, I want to develop, just opening up that mindset can bring in new opportunities. And the Mercury-Uranus sextile in particular will work with that. If you can want something new, it will help bring in that energy. It will attract that energy to you. So that's like one of the things. It's just like, it shows you that there's not just 2 solutions that you have to choose between, that there's an option C and a D and an E and an F and an eternity or infinity, that there's all of the above or none of the above, and not only that too, like, I think, like having that mindset of openness can also like show us the humanity in others and enable us to become more humane in our actions and be able to focus on what's similar, even if it's weaknesses in humans, rather than what's different. But like also like, another thing is a lot of these ideas we have with Mercury Uranus may be mainly inside, but we need to bring them outside. We need to fuse what we believe really inside into the outer world. A lot of people put a big wall between the two of them, and you know, that can be like, you know, something that's really blocking you again. So like, try to find a way, like as Joseph Campbell would say, to follow your bliss, you know, in what you're doing, but have the, like, you know, just that mindset that you want to bring in change, that you want to bring in transformation, and just having that mindset can allow those things to happen. And even when we're in conflict, because we are going to get these conflicts with this new moon opposite Saturn, you know, if most of your experiences with another person are good, conflict is a natural part of relationships. And I don't know where we got into this mindset of thinking that, you know, every relationship had to be like perfectly harmonious all the time. That's a very unrealistic way of looking at relationships. In fact, the tension in relationships many times is what can bring it to a higher level, when we can open up and air out these views. So like, if like 9 out of 10 of your experiences with anyone you're relating with is a good experience, then it's not worth throwing out or getting defensive about the one thing you may not be agreeing with out of those 10 things. In fact, if anything, that's where your download may be, where you're trying to get a piece of information to the puzzle that you're missing. So you may feel a little defensive initially, but if you let it in, it may give you another part of the whole answer that you're looking for. So having like this collaborative mindset, even with the people that sometimes you fall into conflict with, can really bring another thing. And then the other thing is not, you know, giving up. You have to have resiliency. When you try something new, it's not going to work perfectly the first time or the second time or maybe even the 10th time. That's because you're learning still. Don't beat yourself up over it. It's okay. That's what life is all about. It's like staying present in that moment, on the path, on the journey. So have that resilient mindset. Every day is a new day. You could have done the worst thing you ever thought you ever did the day before, and the next day you may do the best thing you ever did. But you have to have the mindset of like, I'm not giving up. And then the last thing is to use that Mercury Uranus. That's creative, intellectual energy. That's cutting edge evolution stuff. That's the top of the evolutionary ladder, with collaboration with people happening. So like, reframing things so that you can show people how things can be done in a different way with your own actions, with your own words. You could get the most negative thing that you have to tell someone, and you can respin that and keep that something positive both for yourself and them. So like, these are the things like Mercury Uranus may give us the opportunity to look at. And the last thing that's happening this week, which could really, really help, we're finally going to get out of a lot of this Cancer stuff. The sun is going into Leo. Okay, you ever hear the song Express Yourself? I think it's the old R&B. I can't remember the original artist, but a lot of people do it. You know, whatever you do, do it good. Express yourself. That's Sun in Leo. That's Sun in Leo. That's you. That's your like creative, special, talented self. Everybody has a gift for the world. And everybody needs to show what that gift is. And Leo is all about that. Leo is like honest, it's forthright, it's intuitive, it's fired up, creative, individual energy. It's voyeuristic. It's like, look at me. Look at how special I am. And you are. And so is everybody else. And the thing about Leo is it can get prideful, can get egotistical, can get subjectively wrapped up in itself. But like, the power of Leo is to use that talent, that unique creative ability that you have, and just show others how things can be done, to be that leader, to show through your actions. So very strong energy for the individual with Leo to influence everyone around them with your own creations. So, this is like, we're getting to a little bit of a turning point now where we're getting out of that energy of that Cancer stuff. There's still some stuff to deal with it, this new moon, and it's still not easy with Saturn involved. But if we do our duties, that will free us up to be able to get into that individual zone where we can use the Mercury Uranus, where we can use the Sun and the Leo energy and our unique talents, collaborate with others, learn, evolutionize, and move on. Be centered in ourselves. Know that our value is right. Bring that out to the world. All right, until next week, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm available for all kinds of readings. My email is matthure823@gmail.com. And remember, with the new moon, you want to look at the house that 29 degrees Cancer is in. And that's where those new beginnings in relation to family structure, home structure, that's where you want to plant those seeds and see that grow. And if you need help with that, I can give you a quick new moon reading too. 10 minutes, $10, something like that. Anyway, until next week, hang in there. And once again, from a societal level, with Eris and Saturn involved, those who are in power, those who are like, supposedly holding up our structures are going to have another tough week. So don't be surprised about a lot of social stress and tension again this week. Okay, until next week, this is Matt Lawton signing off. You all stay well and stay on your path. Stay open to growing, moving forward. Peace out.